Skrilla by the stack, you know I'm bout it. 20K on the dash, you can count it. Got the fireplace burning, baby, cause I'm lounging. Never been crusty, baby, but I've been clowning. Got that thing dripping wet.
Hey, what's going on with everybody, man? Good afternoon to everyone. I hope everyone's having a productive day, feeling blessed. And like I've said, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right, so let's make it count. And once again, you already know, a couple of my subscribers asked me a few questions, and I'm catching up on some old ones that I took screenshots of. And you know, I go to work, and usually when I'm in my cars, I got my notepad with me, and I always jot down notes from everybody in the comment section. So I appreciate you guys' questions that you guys are asking me, and you know, I'm gonna take care of them as soon as I possibly can. You know, with that being said, let's get to it. One individual asked me if norteños use drugs on the main line, and if so, do we get deemed no good? Then he asked me, I heard that some of the new generation talk different and some of the OGs don't like the way the new generation talks. And then he also asked me, are most of the homies that move up in rank usually from San Jose or Salinas? So I'm gonna get to those questions. First, yes, if you're caught doing hard drugs, there's a policy against that. So you will be deemed no good. They want homies to be with sharp minds, professionalism. They feel like hard drugs destroys the code of conduct that they're trying to incorporate in people's daily lives and routines and into the norteño struggle. Because you gotta remember, oftentimes northerners are viewed as potential recruits for norteños. And norteños are also looked at as potential recruits to become familianos. So drug use is forbidden and is frowned upon. But let's all be realistic here. It does take place, especially on a level 3. Drug trade is real big and there's a flood of it. Sometimes, you know, you can't even sell your sack because everybody else is selling the same sack, so you're not gonna let it go to waste. And that's the honest to God truth. Because when I was in Arizona and Oklahoma, we were bringing in drugs through the staff like crazy because they were free staff. They didn't work for California Departments of Corrections. This was a private corporation. So these individuals looked at us like, man, we were cash cows, and we looked at them like they were cash cows. So all the drugs that we brought in, especially in Arizona, right after we went to war with the Southsiders, we had nobody to sell these drugs to. We just wanted to knock the staff just to open up that pipeline to the streets. And we ended up getting stuck. Sometimes I'll be stuck with a street quarter ounce of crystal meth and not knowing what to do with it. So sometimes, you know, even I myself and along with my fellow brothers, I know people were in there using drugs, playing PlayStation, playing Xbox, because we really had nothing to do. We were isolated, segregated from everybody else. Everybody was having a good time. And so sometimes I would overlook it as long as they didn't abuse it. And trust me when I tell you this, that's another charge that I got brought up against me, is that I was allowing the use of hard drugs. But yes, you will be deemed no good if you are found using hard drugs. They only condone, you know, drinking and marijuana. That's just about it. So yeah, you will be deemed. Another charge that I'm gonna have to mention the day of my removal was that a filter came from Pelican Bay when I was in Arizona. And remember, when I was in Arizona, there was 8 hermanos with us at the time. Marcelo was the authority in charge, but I was acting AIC. He was just kind of being the oversight, and watching me how I conduct myself. It was like my proper training, you know, just like an internship. And so we received a filter coming from Pelican Bay saying it was called the hip hop generation. And the familianos are basically saying that they don't approve of, and they want to discourage any norteños from using the N-word. They feel like the hip hop generation has turned our people to stop acting like raza and being proud of being raza. Mind you, if you go to the Bay, Black and brown communities exist. We coexist with one another. The bond is real strengthened by the environment that they live in, their neighborhoods, and of course, being raised in these urbanized communities where they come together. Yeah, you got a lot of homies that act black, should I say. I mean, there's times that you're gonna hear me in some of my old music videos use the N-word. You know, my practices are now to refrain from that, because as a lyricist, I just want to be known for my lyricism and not just, you know, just making rap music like every other person. So now I'm making the changes myself. You know, periodically, I'm doing my best to make those changes. But back then, when I was a norteño, I wouldn't use that word because I had to view myself at a certain high regard. You know, my professionalism, the way I spoke to people, the way I communicated, the articulation in my speeches. You know, my vernacular had to be to a point where I know I can encourage people to listen to me. So I couldn't act like that. But if you meet a lot of homies from the Bay Area, they do act like that. And I couldn't take that from them. And I remember talking to an hermano from Chole. His name was Negro. And he was like, you know, from the Monterey County, Salinas area, they're homeboys like to the T. They practice real homeboyism. So he was against it too. He said, man, you know what? Yeah, this filter's right. You know, we're going to start telling homies, you need to circulate a filter saying that we're going to start disciplining homies for using the N-word and sagging their pants and all this and this and that. And then I had an argument with them because my celly was backing me up saying like, bro, we really can't change what's already been taking place. I said, what do you want us to do? Stop bumping rap music? If that's the case, because that's pretty much where they got it from. And the environments that they live in. So you want me to tell our brothers, our fellow Solados that they might as well move out these urban areas and just start segregating ourselves from blacks? I go, look at the point of this filter. You know, it's kind of hard to tell our homies to refrain from that type of language and behavior when this is where they grew up. This is what they've been a part of. This is what belongs to them in their neighborhoods. We can't change that, bro. It's already been done. So wow, I don't get what these homies are trying to do. I go, all this is gonna do is push a lot more homies away and become discouraged, and we're gonna lose a lot more Solados if we're gonna go this route. I told my fellow brothers, I go, bad enough we have a lot of rules and regulations, policies and procedures that feel real oppressive to them anyways. They don't even like half the things we do, but they do it because they want to remain active and in good standings with the people and have a safe haven and a secure environment to be in. But here we go coming out with filters like this talking about, man, if you use the N-word, we're going to discipline you. And if you continue to use the N-word, we're going to remove you. I go, yeah, I understand what they're trying to do and what the changes that they're trying to make. I go, but them individuals need to start adjusting to the times, not us. You know, some of those worn out procedures can't be applied to today like they were in the 50s and 60s and 70s. But my brother Negro was not hearing it. He was like, bro, you need to push the filter out. Push the filter out. So I had to talk with my celly, and he pretty much, you know, he was actually the authority in charge. He would just let me intern as it. And he kept saying, he's like, bro, I gave you the acting authority in charge so you could learn to make these decisions on your own. The type of leadership that you need to develop. So make the decision. So what I did is I circulated the filter, and I told everybody, I want you guys to write a simple essay, and I want to hear everybody's feedback from the people. I go, this is the household asking you guys how you guys feel about this filter that's being sent from Pelican Bay. That was my first mistake. That kind of undermining, you know, familianos can get you in a wreck real bad, but that was the only best way for me to come up with the logical sense to make a decision to where, should I do it on behalf of the familianos? Or should I do my job as an hermano and think about the best interests of the people? Instead of always telling the people what to do, when to do, and how to do it, why don't we start encouraging them to have a sense of opinion and give us their feedback? Like, we need to start learning from the people instead of dictating to people. And that's where I made one of my biggest mistakes as well, because a majority of the feedback was like, nah, this is us, this is who we are, this is what separates us from the South, this is what separates us from everybody else. We have our own stilo, we have our own conduct, we have our own principles and ways of life. You can't take that from us. Our neighborhoods up north are different from down south. This is where we come from. This is who we are as a people now. So I let it go. My celly, though, not once did he ever give me any input, whether he agreed or disagreed. He was just more or less like, I get what you're saying. And he let it happen. The whole time, my celly was the individual jotting everything down, every decision that I made wrong, and submitted them to Pelican Bay. Only because it was his job. Only because he had 8 years of being an hermano. And when it comes to norteno struggle, you need 5 years in order to become a C. So his ambitions were, like the celly that removed me, were to become carnales. So this was their way of overlooking the good and bad in leadership, you know. You got to remember, as hermanos, we all take reports on one another and submit it to Pelican Bay for proper recruitment. That's what we do. We're sitting there scrutinizing one another and analyzing one another, being real analytical towards one another to filter out who could be embraced and pulled as familianos, or who's only going to remain in the norteno struggle for its sole purpose. Like, we need individuals out here to protect the people. Some people, have the opportunity to grow and join the organization, the big O, or there's some individuals that look at like, man, they don't qualify. And I think that's what Marcelo was doing, was determining whether I'm going to qualify or not to become a familiano. So yes, I can tell you this, they frowned upon it. Even some of just the regular northerners that were OGs that been in the game a long time, just in and out of the penal system, they didn't like it. And I noticed there was always a division. Them homies would always be in their own little area that interact, very little to the bare minimum, small conversations here and there. You'll see a lot of the young generation gravitate towards one another and come together, and bond in their own way, in their own sense. That's where internal conflict and favoritism from bond number 4 really kicked into play a lot of times. Within the penal system, there was always going to be that separation from the older generation to the younger generation, but the end result, they'll still protect one another no matter what, at all costs. And to answer your question, yes, most of the time, individuals that move up in rank and file, which a lot of people will say that the Nuestra Raza didn't have that, but it's not like how it used to be back in the day. When the NRC was still in effect before the 497 filter changed a lot of the practices. Some of the practices are still in existence. It's just we don't share them with the northern population. It's only practices that we talk about and strengthen amongst ourselves, that we sharpen every day. But like if an individual was an hermano for 5 or 8 years and I'm only 2 years in, he's gonna get the higher ranking positions. I'm not. So I'm gonna have less responsibilities and less input when it comes to the COC command. So there is a such thing as rank and file. Bond number 4 was to teach a lot of individuals that we're not going to use that to abuse and oppress one another, that we still need to consider each other equal. But when it comes to the COC positions, you'll start to see that rank and file kick into effect. Yes, obviously, San Jose is pretty much what I used to call homeboy capital. Everybody was ambitious coming from San Jose because of all the carnales coming from San Jose and Tulare County as well. But you're always going to have those cities up in the north and some more cities in the valley, small town cities, that there's a lot of ambitious people. There's a lot of people dedicated to the cause, so I can't take that from any other city or any other county or any other small town. But a majority of the time, you're going to see a lot of ambitious individuals with the heart and goal to achieve status come from San Jose and Salinas and Tulare County. So I hope that answered your question, my boy. The other question was have there been any Northerners that ever joined the 2-5? How do 2-5ers feel about Southerners becoming riders? Do they target or harass those individuals? There's been some rare occasions when I've seen ex-Northerners become cinqueros, but I can assure you that they don't last long. That they just don't mix, they don't blend well. They try it. I met like 2 from Stockton, where they had Stockton on their stomach, Nortes on their chest and arms. Didn't last too long. I think they kind of realized, like, man, the 2-5er practices, even though they're ex-Southerners, I can't talk down on them. But a lot of them just have bad habits and scandalous ways. Not to say that coming from the lifestyle of being a Sureño made them scandalous. They just came over here and incorporated a lot of scandalous ways that kind of pushes a lot of people away, even ex-Southerners at times. You'll see they have a lot of, their dropout rate from individuals joining 2-5s and then dropping out of 2-5 is bigger than any SNY gang there is. And yes, I'm going to tell you about a certain situation. There was an ex-Southerner. He was from, I don't even remember where he was from, but his name was Ears. And there's a subscriber that actually, I won't mention his name, but he actually brought it up to us and we found out some things later. See, Ears used to be a 2-5er in another facility down south. When Ears got to Tehachapi, he was seeking embracement from the compas. And like I said, we're not biased towards anybody. Ex-South, ex-North, ex-White. That don't matter to us. We put all that to the side because that's just the gang mentality. We want to see who this individual was. See, the thing about Ears, though, is he had his Indian money, so he was trying to buy his way into the movement. And that's what took his progress a little longer because we kept trying to tell him, like, we don't want your money. Keep your money. He kept trying to buy drugs and pretty much give it to the homies, kind of trying to sway the vote. What got Ears into a wreck was that we lost communication with High Desert and another facility, so we really couldn't circulate his name around to get any verifications of whether or not he's in good standings with anybody, with us, or is he in bad standings with anybody else. Until this particular individual, who's a subscriber, brought it up. So when we confronted him about it, he denied it for a few months. Then a couple of Cinqueros arrived from the facility he was at and said, yeah, they were there with him, that he used to be a Cinquero, and he left. So we kept pressuring him because we needed to know if this was true or not, whether we go to bat for this individual and protect him, because we started looking at it as like, oh, because he's an ex-Southerner, the 2-5ers have something to say. And we frown upon that because there's been a lot of instances where ex-Southerners come and the 2-5ers have some problem with them and we have to deal with it. Always got to address it. It's like they did not like seeing ex-Southerners become us or become independent riders. They wanted the 2-5 to only be the gang that recruits ex-Southerners. Long story short, after a few months investigation, Ears does come out and say that, yeah, he was a Cinquero. He didn't like it. He didn't like their get down, that they were scandalous, they were devious, they like to burn people, they were robbing him of his Indian money and using it to get drugs and get them high. Usually they'll take his money, go buy sacks with it, give him a little quarter, and then they'll get high with the rest of his dope and tell him, hey, it's for the casa, it's for the 2-5, homie, for Cinqueros. And he hated it. But we had to tell him, like, man, you put us in the wreck, bro, because we were trying to embrace you. And you knew damn well that this was going to catch up with you in the long run. So imagine if you would have got embraced and they tried to remove you anyways. You would have caused a gang war between us and them over your stupidity and over your lack of respect towards us, to at least put it on the table so we can address it. So we knocked him down for lying to us. And that stopped him from being embraced. But he still came around us after a while, showed us love, and I never understood how come once we did that and pushed him away, it took the Cinqueros, the 2-5ers, a while before they removed him and they jumped him. And then, only to come to find out later, when he left to another facility, he became a 2-5er again. So, you know, instances like that happen. I've seen a lot of cases where, you know, a 2-5er gets jumped, gets out of his STG group, and then becomes a independent rider. The thing about it is we won't accept nobody from any other group segment that's already been part of it, a Zapatista, IR, or 2-5er. Now, if they step back from us and they go to those groups, we really don't care, you know, because we're not really trying to oppress people like that. That's his decision. If he didn't want to uphold the bylaws and the CCOs, then by all means, it wasn't for him. You know, whatever the case may be, as long as they don't join for the wrong reasons, but only for the right reasons, because we still got to take care of ourselves as brothers. Even though oftentimes that's never the case. We still got to take care of one another. But yes, to answer your question, 2-5ers have a bad habit. Like I said, if you're an ex-Southerner coming from the main lines, they're going to get to know you for a little while. That's their first priority, is introducing you to 2-5. They're going to try to bring you in. And that's why their numbers are so big, because most of the time, you know, ex-Southerners, they're going to congregate together. They're going to stick by each other. They're going to make it seem like they'll protect you and that they're the biggest gang, you ain't got nothing to worry about. And oftentimes that does work. And that's why their numbers are so big. Because, you know, all these barrios come together that are from down south, you know, obviously you're gonna gravitate towards individuals that you know, that you were on the main lines with, or that you knew from the streets. You guys are gonna become friends, and next thing you know, they're gonna introduce you to the recruitment process. And then that's only when you're gonna realize how deep it really gets and how unworthy that movement really is when it comes to the Cinqueros. But that's how they do it. They like to put a clamp on the Southern California car and the people within it. So with that being said, I hope I answered you guys' questions. I got to go do 2 more videos real quick, so I'm going to try to drop them back to back. Thank you. Check the link in the description and check out all my music, my content, all my social medias. And thank you guys for your guys' time.